Welcome, welcome. Today I have a true story for you so that you can not only learn why using vocabulary in context is your friend, or in other words, it's going to really help you to learn and remember the vocabulary, but you can also learn new vocabulary and phrases while you're listening. Welcome to English Coach 3Ts. I'm Tanya. It's so good to see some people here live with me. If you're live or if you're watching the recording, let me know where you're at in the chat. Tell me where you're listening from, where you're from. And if this is your first time to watch a live video with me or to be on my channel here, I always love to get to know you all better. And I so appreciate all the comments, all the kind words people send. And every time you share one of my videos, it really is so helpful for me. So I really want to thank you in advance for that. Mateus, I think, says, "Hi, teacher. I met your channel yesterday. I liked it very much." And they're from Brazil. Bom dia. I'm not sure if I said that correctly because I'm learning Spanish and you are speaking Portuguese, but welcome, welcome. Welcome, Marina is also from Brazil. Jesus also found the channel yesterday. Fabulous. First time for Time Due. And someone asks, how am I? I'm doing great. And I'm excited to share this story with you today about why I think you should not learn any more vocabulary. And what I mean by that is stop adding lots and lots of words to a list. If you can understand a lot or most of what I'm saying, you already have a lot of vocabulary. And what you want to do is add that vocabulary, the new vocabulary, in a more organic way or a more natural way. And so, the most natural way to add vocabulary is what you're doing right now. I'm going to ask Espy to come join us because if you have been here with me before, you know that when I go live, Espy likes to bark because she likes to bark. Espy's my dog. She's over here, and this is Pippa. Pippa, look what I've got for you here. This is Pippa, and this is Espy. I'll see if I can get Espy to come up here. Come here, Espy. She might come up here and get this, but it's a little further for her. So what you're doing right now is listening to natural English. You're listening to a conversation, more or less. I'm speaking to you. You're writing back to me, hopefully, in the comments. And there's a little trick for you. Whether you're listening to a live, watching a video, no matter what you are doing, where you're hearing something or reading something, if you write something in the comments or talk about it afterwards, this is really going to help you. Okay, so I see more people chiming in. That means they're writing in the comments, and this is such a good thing. Gulsrin, I'm not sure I'm saying your name correctly, says that they like cats. And Marina says, hello, I'm from Russia, and my daughter's name is Tanya too. Welcome. People from Turkey, all over the world. This is fabulous. So the story I have to share with you today is about my two daughters. If you have been with me for very long, you know that their names are Tiana and Talia. And if you haven't been with me very long, I have lots of videos where I tell stories about our family and different things. And also, Tiana is now a teacher. So if you have seen some of the videos that teacher Tiana has made, that's my oldest daughter. And I have a story about when they were learning vocabulary when they were young. So you may or may not know that I homeschooled my girls. I taught them at home. And in many different areas of their learning, but especially in vocabulary, they were different from each other. They're pretty different from each other in most things. I always joke and say, how can they be so different from each other, but so much like me? I don't know if I have split off into two people, but it's so fabulous to be their mother and watch them do things so differently and in their own way and have their own success. And that's what I want for you. I want you to have success with your English that you feel proud of, that you feel good about. And so that's why I want to share this with you, because when the girls were younger and they were learning vocabulary, they were very curious about workbooks. And I didn't get a workbook. I meant to get this workbook before I started today, but here is a workbook, not the workbook they had. This is an English workbook for learning English as a second language. If you love workbooks like they thought that they did, then this is a workbook I recommend. I like this workbook. I don't think this is the best way to learn grammar, but there's not only one way to learn anything. And the best way is really what works best for you at the time. And I say at the time because this will change as you change. But one thing I know for sure is on your English learning journey, you are always going to need something to listen to, something to read, somewhere to write, and someone or something to talk to. Notice that I am talking right now and I can't see any of you. I can see your names, which helps a lot. When you make a comment, it helps a lot because I know there's someone there listening to me. But mostly I see Pippa trying to get into the treat jar and Espy sitting here next to me wanting another treat. I am using my English, and yes, English is my first language, but when I'm learning Spanish, I do something very similar. I just don't go live. Maybe I could because maybe it would be helpful. I don't know. I think it would scare me, and we don't want to scare ourselves when we are learning a language. Now, that doesn't mean we don't get out of our comfort zone a little bit, not a lot, a little bit. When we get out of our comfort zone a little bit, we're in the learning zone. So back to the workbook. Tiana and Talia were curious about workbooks, and especially Talia wanted a workbook for learning vocabulary. So I got her a vocabulary workbook. Tiana, on the other hand, loved to read. This is a book that I recently read, and Tiana would read and read and read. She would read book after book after book, and sometimes, even as a native speaker, she would read the same book over and over. She'd read the whole book, she'd get to the end, start over, and read it again. Now, both of these girls are now young women. They both have great vocabulary, but here's the ticket. Tiana absorbed isn't really the best word. Acquired is a great word. Acquired a lot of vocabulary from reading. Talia acquired a lot of vocabulary from a little bit of reading and a lot, there's Pippa again, a lot of listening. Talia loves being with people, being with her friends. Tiana does too, but they're different in this way. Tiana is an introvert. Talia is an extrovert. And so Talia learned a lot of vocabulary from conversation. Neither of them learned very much vocabulary from a workbook, but I'm not going to say they learned none. They did learn from a workbook, and you probably have also learned from a workbook or a vocabulary list. However, it's not the natural way to learn vocabulary. And if you think of a list of words compared to all the words in this book, it will help you to understand why learning from reading and listening is going to help you to learn more vocabulary in a natural way. So you might say to me, yes, but Tanya, when I read a book, I'm reading a book that I know most of the words. I'm listening to you. I know most of the words that you're saying. This is true. And it's the best way. You want to read or listen to something where you understand most of it. Maybe you don't understand all of it, but you understand most of it. Let's say 90 to 95%, give or take. It's not exactly that. You want to understand almost all of what I'm saying. You want to understand the idea of what I'm saying. And maybe you don't understand every word or phrase. And this is because hearing and reading the words you already know are going to help you. I'm looking for the treats, is going to help you to remember the words you already know and the phrases you already know so that you can use them. It's going to make them a natural part of your life. So I wrote something here on my blackboard that helps you to understand why listening and reading is so important, because you need to use it or lose it. This is a really, really common phrase that we use in English, especially in the United States, or I should say, at least in the United States. I'm an American, and so I speak American English. And this phrase is super common, and there's a lot of wisdom in it because you need to use all the vocabulary you already know before you start adding new vocabulary. This is why I say, don't learn more vocabulary. Use the vocabulary you already know. Listen to more things. Find things you love reading and read those. And it is not only totally okay, it's important and necessary that you read things on the level that you are already reading so that you can understand it. And you will, in this way, build your reading experience, build your ability to read. So while you're listening to me, hopefully you are using the vocabulary that you already have. And maybe you've learned a new phrase, or if that's not a new phrase for you, there are probably words you're not even aware of the fact that you're using them. Pardon me, that you're learning them. This is such a natural way to learn that one of the hardest ways of learning in this way is that you are not aware of what you're learning when you're learning it. And that can be difficult in our head. It's our thoughts that are difficult because our thoughts are saying, but I'm not learning anything. And actually, you are learning just like Tiana and Talia learned. And the other thing is that I want you to think of anyone you know in your native language who has a large vocabulary. And if you can think of them, ask them if they read and what they read, because this is one of the keys to their large vocabulary. And if they say, no, I don't like to read, ask them what they listen to. And if they're an extrovert, Pippa just knocked the treat tray off. To knock off, in this case, is to, she knocked it off the table, and that's why you heard it hit the floor. There's a phrasal verb for you. Okay, I want to see if you have any questions. So put your questions in the chat. If you're here live, if you're here watching the recording, put your questions in the comments. I want to hear from you. I want to know what your thoughts are, even if you disagree with me, even if you think that cannot be true. I want to know about what you think. I want to have some conversation with you here. So I'm going to look and see if there are any questions. The first question is, how are you? I'm doing great. Thank you. There's a lot going on in my life right now. And a few days ago, I was really stressed out. We say we're stressed out when we're feeling a lot of stress. Gratefully, I got a lot of sleep since then. I got some things done, which is always helpful for me, and I'm feeling a lot better today. Also, it's first thing in the morning here. It's 8:15. So we have just a few more minutes for questions about learning vocabulary, and especially about learning vocabulary in this natural way, which, by the way, is comprehensible input. And there's many things you can find about comprehensible input on the internet. Like most things, you're going to find some things you really like. You're going to find some things you don't like. But I recommend that you look around at some ideas about comprehensible input. I don't know why this little hair wants to stick to me, but and see what you think about it. I recommend reading or listening to things by Stephen Krashen. Not 100% sure I know how to spell his name, so I'm going to put it here in the chat. Stephen Krashen. I'm pretty sure his last name is like this. His first name might be like this. If you know how to spell his name, put it in the chat for me. So while I'm waiting to see if oh, that was my comment. Oh, I see here. Xuan Lu says, are there a lot of different accents between American and Canadian accents? This is a great question. I'm not an expert on accents. I'm an English teacher, but I don't do accent reduction. I don't do any of that kind of thing. I can, of course, help you. I would say I would help you with your I can't speak. I would help you with your pronunciation to make sure you're clear and understandable. But I am not an accent reduction teacher. But I do know that, as in my experience, the Canadian accent is very, very similar to the American accent. So similar that I have often met people from Canada, and I didn't even know they were from another country. Part of that, as time went by, I realized they're saying some words differently, and I eventually figured out that they were from Canada. Now that I'm teaching more all over the world, I am much more aware of the Canadian accent, but it's very similar to the American accent. And there are lots of American accents. So in some ways, it's just another North American accent that's really similar. They're all very similar to each other. Another question I see here is, I translate the vocabulary to my native language. Why? Translation of the vocabulary. There might be a word missing there because there's a heart on my screen. I don't recommend that you translate words to your native language. And here's why. Because then your brain has to take a longer route to get to what you want to say. Now, this is just an example, but if, for example, I want to say the word cat in Spanish, then if I have to translate cat to gato and then back to cat, my brain has to take this trip or this time to translate. Or if I just remember that this is a cat, then boom, I have the word right there. So I'm not saying never translate your words. Of course, I translate words in Spanish. I'm learning German now. I don't ever translate the words to English. So far, again, like I said, things change over time. The way I've learned Spanish has changed slightly here and there. I listen to a lot more comprehensible input than I used to. And I also make sure that I'm getting output or speaking. I also write more than I used to. And there's more on that in other videos. But The main thing is to find what is working for you at the moment. Cyrotech says, I live in Angola. How can I get that book? So Cyrotech, I don't recommend that book unless you love workbooks. And if you do, you can find it online. I'm not sure if you can get it in Angola, but I know that it is on Amazon and other websites. I don't know. I don't sell that book. Let's see if there are any other questions here. What is the reason we learn more vocabulary is slowing down? How it affects us? When we slow down, and what I mean by slow down is take your time to really use the vocabulary. See if my sign is right side up. Use it or lose it. Back to that phrase. If we take time, slow down, and use the vocabulary, our brain can then remember it. I have other videos about why this is, so hopefully you'll go watch those. But it is our brain, if you think about it, when we do anything really quickly, there are times when that is needed. But usually we do most things at this natural rate or this natural speed. And this is what we want to find when we're learning our second language. And as we all know, when we're learning, we need to slow down a little so that we can understand it and then we can speed back up. All right, I am out of question. Leslie says they have a question. Leslie, what is your question? I will see if you can type it before I need to go. Otherwise, if you have more questions, you can put them in the recording when this is finished. The recorded version will be on my YouTube. You can watch it again to listen for anything you may have missed, and you can leave comments there. I will be checking those comments all day to see if we can get a little conversation about this going. And also in the description below the video, you will find a link for my She Speaks Women's Fluency Program. I've built this fluency program for women who want to be fluent, but they need to build their confidence. They need to know how to practice. They need to know what to practice. And I have put everything you're going to need in one place so that you have people to talk to, resources for listening, conversation, reading, writing. It's all together in one place. And if you'd like to be on the wait list, the description will be, pardon me, the link will be in the description below. You can sign up for the wait list and I will send you some emails to make sure you have all the information you need to know about the program before you sign up. And if you have any more questions, you can put those in the comments as well. Okay, Leslie says, what is the reason? Wait, let's see here. I already answered that one. Can I be a teacher and student at the same time? This is a great question. Yes, yes, of course you can be. You can teach what you already know. And in fact, this is really a good way for you to learn what you are learning is to teach it to someone else. And so I recommend this to everyone who is here today. If you learned anything today from this video or any of the other videos I have, go and teach it to someone else or go and tell someone else about it, because this way you will learn, you will remember what you have learned. And this, I think, is a great, great way to learn and also teach, because the teacher understands the student. And in this way, the student has someone who can be more understanding of them and understand kind of where they are in their journey. I think it's a great way to learn and to teach. All right, everyone. I hope you are finding what you're looking for so that you can learn in the best way possible for you, in the way that works best for you, is what I want to say. And I would love for you to check out other videos I have here on YouTube. I have lots of videos. And also, if you're not following me on Instagram, you might want to go check out my Instagram is a little different than YouTube. I do a lot of phrasal verbs there. I have phrasal verbs here as well. But also I um, do, of course, shorter things on Instagram. And I will look forward to seeing you in my next live or on one of my other videos very soon. Thank you for the hearts. Bye-bye.